Hi there, I'm Nancy Nash with Starfish Strength, and I'm passionate about healthy eating all year long. I do believe in indulging our cravings from time to time, and I don't think that dessert always has to be a splurge. Today, I want to share a recipe with you for healthier chocolate chip cranberry oatmeal cookies. I grew up in a family of bakers and I still love dessert, but I do try to find ways to make it healthier, which is why I'm so excited to share this recipe with you today. So starting off, if you're baking these cookies today, make sure you preheat your oven to 350 degrees. So getting started, we're going to mix up our wet ingredients. I'm going to crack 2 eggs in a large bowl. And next, I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of maple syrup. And I'm using my favorite maple syrup here. It is a dark, really intense flavor. So I highly recommend getting a good maple syrup if you can get your hands on it. I'll leave a link in the description to my favorite maple syrup if you're interested in picking some up for yourself. Next, I'm going to add 1 cup of Truvia brown sugar blend. And you do want to just lightly pack brown sugar as you measure it. Make sure that, you're not pushing it down, but you're just giving it those little taps. So I'm going to use an electric mixer to combine my sugar and my eggs. You could also use a whisk if that's more convenient for you. Next, I'm going to add a 1/2 cup of room temperature butter. If you're watching this recipe before you're making it, see if you can leave your butter out for a couple hours to let it come to room temperature. It will blend a lot better. Otherwise, you could put it in the microwave for 30 seconds or so. I'm going to add a 1/4 cup of olive oil. So I'm using extra virgin olive oil that's mild in flavor. If you're thinking that olive oil is really going to poke through flavor-wise, you could use another healthy oil. Avocado oil is a great option. I just happen to be allergic to avocados. Canola oil could also work. And then we're going to add 2 teaspoons of your favorite vanilla extract. And I do recommend using real vanilla just because the flavor really does make a difference in these cookies. So I'm going to use my electric mixer to combine everything together. Again, if what you have is a whisk, you could use that. It will take a little more arm strength to break down that butter, but I believe in you. So go ahead and set your wet ingredients to the side. And next we're going to mix up our dry ingredients. I'm going to use a medium-sized bowl and I'm going to mix my flours first. So I want 1 cup of all-purpose flour. You could use wheat here. I'm just using white flour. To that, I'm going to add a 1/2 cup of almond flour. And this is pretty finely ground. I have seen it available where it does have flecks of the skin in it. That will work just great here since we're going to add nuts into this recipe anyway. And then I'm going to add a 1/2 cup of garbanzo or chickpea flour. So next, I'm going to measure a teaspoon of baking powder and a teaspoon of baking soda. And I'll also want to add a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. I'm going to whisk these dry ingredients to combine just to make sure everything is evenly dispersed. And now we're going to add our spices. I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of cinnamon and a 1/2 teaspoon each of ground nutmeg and ground ginger. So I'm going to whisk this thoroughly so that everything is dispersed throughout. And when it's looking, just like that little light brown color, then we're ready to start combining our dry ingredients into our wet ingredients. I'm going to try to slowly sift my dry ingredients into my wet ingredients and just gently start stirring. I know sometimes it's hard to slowly add. I kind of added in a big chunk there, but do your best. And if you notice that it's beginning to get clumpy and look like cookie batter, that's great. And you may want to switch over to a wooden spoon or a spatula. So keep stirring until everything is looking really well combined. And when you're thinking that you're no longer seeing little signs of flour, you've scraped everything from the bowl, now we're ready to add our oats. So I'm going to add 2 cups of quick oats. I'm going to mix them in 1 cup at a time. Again, just to make sure that everything gets evenly mixed and dispersed. So give it a good stir. And then when you start to feel, like everything is evenly oaty, ready, go ahead and add your second cup and then continue stirring until you start really seeing that things are having that sticky cookie consistency. So now we're going to add the fun stuff. I'm going to add a half cup of chopped walnuts. You could also add almonds. You could also omit the nuts if you're not really a nut person. Next, I'm going to add a quarter cup of unsweetened shredded coconut. I'm going to add half a cup of dried cranberries, and I'm using the Ocean Spray 50% less sugar. So they're only slightly sweetened and they really do pop in this recipe. But if you're not a fan of cranberries, you could also substitute raisins or you could substitute currants. Both of those would work great here. I think chopped dates would work really great as well. And then lastly, I'm going to mix in the chocolate chips. So I'm going to use half a cup of Hershey's zero sugar chocolate chips. You could again use your favorite chocolate chips. If you have a lower sugar version, that's great. I know there are a couple other good ones out there. Lily's makes one. Endangered Species makes really good chocolate chips. So this is going to take some muscle. I'm going to mix this until things are really thoroughly combined. Now, I know some people like to get in with their hands at this point. I'm going to continue using my wooden spoon, but if you need to put some gloves on and mix this with your hands, that can be very satisfying too. So no judgment, just make sure that everything is evenly mixed. Nobody wants a cookie without a chocolate chip in it. So once things are mixed to your satisfaction and you can scoop it and you see that it's kind of sticking together and each scoop has just a little bit of everything in it, you're ready to either bake your cookies, or if you want, you could store this cookie batter to bake later in the day, or I would say up to 2 days later. So if you're baking these today, go ahead and grab 2 or 3 cookie sheets. So I've got a pretty large cookie sheet here, and it is nonstick, but I am going to coat it with nonstick spray just to make sure they lift off really easily, because sometimes chocolate and the cranberry stick. I'm going to bake 2 sheets of 12 cookies at once. Depending on how large you wind up making these cookies, depends on how much space they're going to take up. So you may wind up with as many as 3 dozen cookies. If they're a little bit larger than mine, you'll probably wind up with a few fewer. I'm going to make my cookies about 2 to 3 tablespoons in size. So you could also use an ice cream scoop to scoop those out. You could use a medium cookie scoop. You can also use your hands. You could shape them with your hands and put them on the tray. Use whatever is most convenient or intuitive to you to make sure that they're evenly dispersed. They're all going to get baked and be delicious no matter what. Even though I've got these really large cookie trays, I am just putting a dozen per tray because I have definitely been guilty of crowding the tray, trying to cook too many things at once, and it didn't work out so hot. So unless you want to make a cookie, make sure you space your cookies. So when I was a kid, for some reason, I did not like chocolate. So when we made chocolate chip cookies, I would make myself a chipless cookie. I usually find, that if you used enough toppings, you kind of wind up with the opposite problem towards the end here. You might find that you're packing more chocolate chips into the batter than maybe reasonably fit, but a chocolate fan should definitely get that cookie. So I'm aiming to come up with 3 dozen cookies, but again, if you make yours a little bit bigger, you might wind up with a few fewer. And then these are going to bake for 9 to 12 minutes. So I think my oven tends to run a little bit cool, and these take about 9 minutes depending on your oven. Make sure you check them a little bit early. So when you're checking your cookies for doneness, you're looking for that golden brown color on top. If you find that they're just starting to turn golden brown, then I probably leave them for like 1 more minute, but no longer. I do think these cookies still taste good if they're a little crispy, but we all know that perfect cookie bite is what we're after. So once your cookies come out of the oven, let yourself set them to cool, maybe for about 10 minutes or so. All right, so these have been cooling and they look absolutely great. So let's go ahead and taste one. Sometimes when something tastes this good, I chew with my mouth open. So I really try not to do that at you. I love these. I love the balance of chocolate and the crunch of the nuts. I love that little hint of coconut, and the maple syrup just kind of pokes through. I am a huge cranberry person, So I really enjoy the craisins in this. So even though we made these a little bit healthier with the chickpea flour and the almond flour just, you can taste it a little bit. It gave it a little more nutty flavor, and the chickpea flour kind of disappears because of all the other ingredients. So there's actually fiber and protein in these. I'm not going to label this as a food you should eat for breakfast every day, but I would choose this for breakfast over another cookie. Thanks so much for making time to bake with me today. I hope you enjoyed this recipe. If you did, please check out my other healthy recipes. And on my channel, you'll also find workouts and exercise and recovery tips. If you want some one-on-one support with your nutrition plan or exercise programming, please reach out to me in the link in the description for a one-on-one consultation. In the meantime, I look forward to continuing this journey with you, and I'll see you in the next video. Suck it, Keebler. Just kidding. Thank you for being taller of the mixer today. I can't offer you a cookie, but I can offer you salmon. The salmon a fair trade. Thank you for being a good boy about the noise. You did a good job today. Happy Valentine's Day.